Hey, Flowmies, it's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. This week, we're going to interview Amber Jones of KJ's Window Cleaning and designer of the Home Pro Portal, some software that can really help small business owners. We're going to get into discussion about that, but Amber's a really valuable source of information because she comes from a marketing background. She used to have her own marketing agency back in the day. So she's going to really talk about different things that business owners we can do to make sure that we have our marketing on par and it's run as efficiently as possible. But she also shares some personal information regarding when she was younger, she dealt with anxiety disorder and the different things that she had to learn to be able to cope with that, and the strategies that she has to keep it at bay as an adult, and how that information informs the way that she runs her business. So it's very, very informative. Also, we're happy to announce that she's expecting, and she talks a little bit about the balancing of the needs of the children and the family with, of course, the needs of the parents. So it's a really good interview. We know you're going to enjoy it. So let's bring Amber on in as we listen to her interview. All right, Flowmies, we got another episode of the ITF Flowcast. This week we have Amber Jones with us. How you doing, Amber?
Good. How yourself?
Awesome. I'm doing very good. So
Good.
you and your husband, Kelvin, you guys run the KJ's window cleaning, right? You guys run that on one
That's
side,
right.
but you also got a really cool project going called the Home Pro Portal, which I want to get into later on in the podcast.
Okay.
So I really appreciate taking the time to join us.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about how you guys got started doing Windows? Was this something
Okay.
that, like, whose idea was it, and was this something that you guys had experience on with, or how did it start?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, actually, um, I actually had my own advertising agency, and I was having some health issues.
Hmm.
And at that time, Kelvin was doing data entry,
Mm-hmm.
and he just looked at me and he's like, "You can't keep doing this. Like, I have to do something to help you so that like you can kind of focus on what we need to focus on." And so he started watching all these YouTube videos, and of course it was Keith Kalfas, right? Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, "I think I want to get into window cleaning." And I was like, "Man, you can't make any money window cleaning, right?" Like, and he was like, "No, I really want to do this, babe." And I was like, "Okay, well, you believed in me for all these years, so let's just jump right in." And he really didn't have a choice. He's like, I can't support the family off of, this income, right?
Yeah.
And
Working for
so he dove right in.
Wow.
He started with storefronts,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember the first day he came home and he got his first storefront, and the first day he was like, "Amber, this is the easiest thing I've ever sold." Like, he was like, "It's so cool because people don't get mad at you. That it's either a yes or a no, right?" And so he started with storefronts, and um, eventually it was like, okay, this is cool, but it's only enough to bring home like 2 days worth of groceries, right? Like,
Right.
and so we kind of just dove right into residential, because he was like, I gotta step up. And so he was working full time. He'd get off at 2 in the afternoon, and then we'd go clean windows together, for residential. And that's kind of how we got started. Um, he, like I said, he supported me blindly. So I said, you know what, it's my turn. So let's just get it. That's kind of
Nice.
how we got. And then actually, my dad was a window cleaner too,
Oh, okay.
but he did commercial back
Okay.
in the day, and he actually, I love him to death, but he was like, "There's no way that you'll get residential people to pay that much for window cleaning." And I says, "Let me prove you wrong." Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it
Exactly.
actually kind of runs in the family a little bit. He stopped before I remembered any of it, but yeah, that's kind of how we got started.
Interesting. Very cool. So how long did it take for him to go from doing just storefronts to go into residential?
It was within the first 30 days, I'd say, actually.
30
Um,
days?
yeah, it
Holy
was
cow.
our first residential was pretty funny, actually. I remember doing it together, and we had no idea how we were going to do the second story windows. We had no
Uh-huh.
idea because Kelvin doesn't like heights, and he's like, "I don't want to get on it." Like, we didn't even have a ladder. We didn't that was tall enough at the time. And so we had these like Home Depot poles, right? And he's just trying like to He's gonna be so mad that I told this story. But he's like on his tippy toes, right, getting them. But and then on the other ones, he climbed out. He climbed out on the roof to get it, and it was humbling to think back to those days. But it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, like you said, you do what you got to do, and
Yeah.
I got stories like that too, where I remember one, we needed some money, we needed to pay the rent, or I mean, not the rent, it was more, we had a mortgage, and
Hmm.
I had this one job out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a construction cleanup, and so a lot of the scaffolding was still left out there, and so I was using
Nice.
the scaffolding to get to the windows, but there was this one little one that was high up, and
Hmm.
I literal it was just those 2x6s, 2x6 boards going across, and I
Oh,
took
uh-huh.
a step stool and I set a step stool long ways on it, so the corners are off the edges because they were wider than
Yeah.
that board, and I stood on that step stool just to get this little window, and I got down and I was so scared, and I said, and I just kind of hit me like, I just risked my life for like a $10 window. You know,
Right.
I mean, 10,
Yeah.
that's what I just said. I just said my life is worth $10
Mm.
because I did that, and
Right.
but it's like when you need to pay the bills, you just do it, and you just
Yeah.
figure it out along the way. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Very good. So tell me, what are some of the challenges that you've had? I know you had mentioned a little bit that you had an early battle with anxiety disorder, and
Yeah.
that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you about it, because I think window cleaners, we're very independent. We're also very private a
Mhm.
lot of times,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
when we're dealing with things such as anxiety and depression, it's not really something that a lot of guys like to talk about.
Yeah.
And as a result, they kind of keep it kind of closed in, and they have this inner struggle.
Right.
But you had yours kind of early on in life, right? And I think it
Yeah.
informed a little bit about how you run your business.
Yeah, for sure. So this was way before prior to having kids, actually. We were
Mhm.
only married for a couple of years, and I worked at a doctor's office, ironically. And I really care about people a lot. And so I was working in this doctor's office, and I kept seeing things and that I couldn't fix. And at
Mm,
the time, I didn't know what it was, right?
mhm.
But people would go blind and all these things, and I would take that burden home with me, and I couldn't fix it. And I didn't realize this
Oh,
until later. My dad actually told me. But all of a sudden, I had my first panic attack, and oh God, I wouldn't wish I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Um, and so I went through this whole journey and of trying to figure it out, what is going on. I remember being in the fetal position on the floor for 2 weeks. Actually,
mm,
it like it's the worst. And so one of the things that was important to me was that I learned how to handle it for me personally without medication.
mhm.
Because I was so young. I was only like 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like I'm eating Oreos, I'm eating garbage food, right? And they're saying they're just trying to throw these pills. Let me try these other things first. So in going through that process, it was emotional, physical, spiritual, like all of the above, right? That I had to tap into. And one of the biggest things that I learned about myself is that I'm a problem solver. And it literally drives me crazy when I can't solve a problem.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just one of those things where I had to accept it, because the more I was in denial of it, the worse I was.
Yeah.
But once I acknowledged it and I said, you know what, there's a reason why this is happening to me. I'll be able to help people. You know what I mean? Like through my story, through however I figured, maybe I'll be able to connect with someone that no one else understands, right? Because unless you've gone through a panic attack, you kind of just don't know.
Yeah. No,
And
that's very true.
so over the years, I kind of learned to hone in on what my issues are. Like we all have issues, right? So what are my issues and how can I balance it? And what ended up happening is just in like my dad told me, he's like, Amber, you care about people and you try to solve every problem. And I just would think about that all the time. And I figured out, okay, well, I'm a problem solver. So so I kind of just like dug in. Number one was realizing my limitations. and that I can't control everything. But other than that, it's like, what can I control?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do better, you know? And that kind of was, excuse me, that was my start of it. And long story short, I kind of ended up becoming a self-taught COO out of it, like in like quality control, and just it just it made me want to be efficient.
Mm.
And so I've kind of I actually don't suffer with it much at all anymore. Just through diet and just knowing my triggers. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
some triggers and things like that, but I don't deal with that aspect of it much anymore at all, unless I'm under extreme stress for an extended period of
Extended period
time,
of time. Yeah.
or if I eat Oreos. So don't give me any Oreos, right?
keep the Oreos away if we want Amber to be sane, right? But
Yeah.
can I ask you, when you were going through your anxiety
Mhm.
issues and you're having these panic attacks, were you able to identify it as anxiety, or did you think it was something else that was happening to you, like medically or physically? I
Yeah.
mean,
So
obviously
when it,
there's physical parts to anxiety,
right,
but
yeah.
did you think it was something external that was happening to you?
Oh yeah, the first time it happened, I thought I was dying. Um, I didn't know what was like. My heart was pounding really. I was asleep actually. I'll never forget. I was asleep
Wow.
and Kelvin was watching American Idol, and it was the year with Adam Lambert. I remember this. This is this guy that hits this high note. He's like this rock star, and he hit this
Uh-huh.
high note, and it woke me up out of my sleep, and it scared me. And like my heart was pounding, my throat was closing in on me, I couldn't breathe, my stomach was upset. I
Wow.
kept going to the bathroom, and I was like, Kelvin, you got to take me to the hospital, like I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I can't breathe. And so physically, so that was a panic attack. And so there's panic attacks and then there's anxiety, right?
Hmm.
And so up until that point, I probably had anxiety and didn't realize it, and then it just built, and boom, like the
Yeah.
panic attack hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then after it happened, it's like adrenaline shoots off uncontrollably. So that's what would happen for me,
Hmm.
is like I would get to these levels and then poof, like I would feel this jolt of adrenaline go off, and I'd have all these symptoms, and then it would literally take a week or two to recover. You're just
Wow.
zapped of energy. Like it's, so that's physically what happened when I went through it.
Yeah. Did Calvin understand what was going on?
Kelvin was awesome. Yes and no. He never had it, but he's had relatives that have had it,
Okay.
and we did a lot of research and study to try to understand it. And he was really supportive of
Hmm.
just trying to get through it the way that I wanted to get through it. But there was no one thing that helped us. It was we had to get help on like multiple different levels.
Sure.
Like I said, food, health, medicals. If you have a faith, spiritual, it's so many different levels that you have to kind of balance out at the same time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I know for me, I dealt with anxiety when I was in school from a
Mm,
young age, and I've talked about this before on both on the
mm,
podcast and other places, but
mm,
um for me, it was never I never, well, one, I never did because I was a kid. So I never,
yeah,
I just thought
yeah,
this is what happened. This is
right.
just what you, when you were under pressure, and a lot of the pressure, granted, I put on myself. So it wasn't
Hmm.
like I was in
Yep.
any bad situation. I just created this setting in my mind of, well, I need to be perfect, or else if I'm not
Right.
perfect, I'm going to
Yeah.
let all these people down, and my friends aren't going to like me anymore. My family's not going to love me anymore. My whole purpose is to be perfect, and it's like,
Right.
never was told that. My parents are so supportive, and they
Hmm.
never ever put undue pressure on me to be more than what I could, but it was just
Yeah.
myself.
Yep.
And then when that's left unchecked, you just grow up thinking that's what you're supposed to do. And
Right.
when you hit a wall and you can't accomplish that, then it's literally, I mean, it was like the end of the world. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I thought that was it. And so I shut down a lot. I reacted very poorly in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it probably took me till I was, probably a good 4 or 5 years of kind of slowly working it out in my mind. I
Mm,
didn't have counseling. I mean, nobody identified anxiety as an issue. It
back
just,
then,
anxiety was
yeah,
just something you just, because some kids got nervous,
right.
that's what they said. I have a nervous stomach. I was always told that. Oh, he has a nervous stomach.
Wow.
And I did, but it was because of anxiety.
Right.
Um, so we're with you, you mentioned you changed your diet. You started focusing on a lot of other things that were, because I think that's a good point. For me, it was like you have to have things that are more important than what you think is
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
For
And the other
you,
biggest thing is like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, good.
I was just saying you have to let go. You have to let go. Like I wanted things so bad in life. Like I wanted situations to be a certain way so bad. I didn't realize that I was trying to control everything.
Hmm.
And so you have to be able to let go of that. Like that's the biggest thing is like, because if you don't let go of that perfection, that like
Yep.
I want it to be this way, right? Like it's one thing to be determined, but you got to have that line, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit on an important point, especially for business owners, because like you said, I think for someone with anxiety, what we want is control, right?
Hmm.
As long as we have control of the situation and things are as they should be, we're fine. I mean, we look like every ordinary person,
Right.
right? No problem. But it's when things start getting out of control, or we're
Yep.
not getting the results that we think we should get, or we should do. That's when we start getting anxious and it starts building up. And as a business owner, how much of our business, especially when you're starting a business,
Yeah.
is totally out of our control? You know,
Right.
so much of it, whether we can pay our bills, whether our marketing or advertising is going to work in our area, whether a
Right.
pandemic hits right when you start your business,
Yeah.
all of that stuff is out of your control. And so you can see where if someone already is susceptible to anxiety, if they try to become a business owner, boy, that anxiety can just go off the charts.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I think it's like you said, I forget how you worded it, but you said something to the effect of you kind of identified it, and realized, hey, this is something I got to do something about.
Yeah.
And if you're a business owner, and if you feel like you have to acknowledge it, I
Yeah.
this is something I
Absolutely.
have now. It's something you can now make decisions based on what your limitations are, as
Right.
opposed to trying to just muscle right through it, and then you end up harming yourself,
Yeah,
mentally.
absolutely. Absolutely. And like the biggest thing is once you acknowledge it, then you can adapt to it,
Mhm.
right? Like, and I think that was the biggest thing that helped me get through is just acknowledgement and then adaptation
Yes.
was huge for us.
What was some of your coping skills that you developed to help you with your anxiety?
Outside of so back then or right now, like how I manage
Both.
it
So
now.
so so both
Okay.
both when you were first experiment. Now you already mentioned
Okay.
like nutrition. You
Yeah.
you mentioned the spiritual type thing, but I'm speaking more like mental, like because like
Mental.
for me, I really had to. I almost had conversations with myself when
Right.
I
You
felt
do,
myself.
right?
When you start gearing towards the old way of thinking, you're like, no, 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 that's not true. That's not the way it is.
Right.
This is the way it is. And you're
Right.
continually having this conversation with yourself. What were some of the things that you were doing?
Okay. So back then, the first thing I did was I found a support system of people that kind of already knew.
Excellent.
That was huge. I had a couple of friends that said, "You can call me any time of the night,"
Mhm.
like because I always had them at nighttime. Within like I would try to fall asleep. It was like my brain wouldn't shut off, and so it
Mhm.
was like trying to go to sleep. But then, so I would have people that said, "You can call me at midnight if you have to, and I'll help
Mhm.
talk you out of it." The other coping mechanism was like back then I would tell like I would get a sheet of paper and I would draw a line down that sheet of paper. And on one side, I would write the problem, right? Like, or what's on my mind. And on the other side, I wrote the solution. And one thing that I figured out was every problem had a solution. And if I didn't have the solution, for me, the solution was my faith, right?
There you go.
So then it was like, okay, cool. Like everything is
Oh,
the world is not going to end, right? Like
yes.
so that was that was huge. And then I would tell myself like when I was actually in it, I would literally just have to, number one is having that support system there. Two is the human touch actually helps a lot.
Mm.
So I would ask Kelvin to just like hold my arm, right? And just a slow, gentle touch, right? Feeling someone else's calm energy, essentially, right, would help me come down
Interesting.
out of it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I did to cope while I was actually in the heat of like an
Hmm.
attack.
Now, what do you do now?
B12, B complex,
Oh, yeah.
actually.
Oh,
B
be calm.
complex helps. Yeah, magnesium.
It's
It can
funny.
help you.
That was one of the things my mom gave me when I was having, and again, we didn't identify it as anxiety, but
Yeah,
she B12 was, she'd give me shots
yeah,
of it, and trying to help me calm down, when I would get through a really tough time. So that's interesting you say that.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
what about now? So now it's not, and the same thing for me. Anxiety really doesn't play a big role in my life anymore. I'm very
Mm-hmm,
calm for the most part. I can handle stress really well. But a lot of that is because I did learn coping
mm-hmm.
skills back then, so how do you, what are some things you do now that kind of helps to keep everything in check so that it doesn't pop up again?
Um, the biggest thing for me is food. Like, there's a lot of chemicals in food, MSG
Hmm.
and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and like a lot of chemicals literally are made to trigger your brain to crave that food more, but it also does other bad junk to you too. So like, Kelvin's gonna laugh at me. So I'm pregnant, right? And I've had a pretty clean diet until his pregnancy, and I've been craving Pop Tarts. And when he comes home, if I'm just a little bit cranky or edgy, he'll be like, "Did you get a Pop Tart?" So for now, it's diet, and then like my biggest struggle now is not even anxiety, it's more of mommy guilt,
Oh,
right?
sure,
So
yeah.
because I've got the two girls at home, I'm
Hmm.
homeschooling,
Hmm.
I'm trying to help on the back end of the business, right? And so I think I struggle more with guilt now than anxiety.
Hmm.
um because I want to be there for my girls. I don't want to stop what I'm doing, helping them with their homeschool or whatever, and say, hold on, I got to answer this phone call, right? Like, and so sometimes when the mommy guilt builds up, then the anxiety builds up for me
Hmm.
too. And
Hmm.
so I had to put physical things in place, physical limitations in place. It's kind of how I cope now, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
That's
I,
real, and I think you're right. It is tied together because, I mean,
mm-hmm,
honestly, a lot of my anxiety growing up was guilt.
mm-hmm,
Guilt at the base of that. It was the guilt of not being able to get the grades I was supposed to do, not being
yeah,
able to accomplish what I felt I should, and it was, it's like I felt like I owed everybody something, and I was not able to fulfill that.
yeah,
I know a lot. I mean, a lot of moms go through, even moms who aren't running a business go through
yeah,
mommy guilt, and it's because we love our kids so much. I mean,
yeah,
we kids, and we want them to have the best, and they deserve our attention, and
yeah,
so it's hard when you're trying to, like you say, you're trying to help on the business, you're trying to do this and trying to do that, and then they're
mm-hmm,
always there just looking for attention, and
yeah,
and it's important to remember that the love that you have for them is going to come across, even if we do have to get super busy, for
yeah.
one reason. um
Yeah. And I mean, I think the guilt can happen to anyone. Like once that family, it's got to balance. Like one as soon as that work starts like getting higher than the family, like
mhm.
it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And you're torn because you're like, I gotta pay the bills, right? Like you gotta do these things, but you
Mhm.
end up being just torn in that guilt will just, man, it can drive anxiety,
Yeah.
everything. It's like, where do you find the balance?
When
You know?
and you're expecting, so you said, I think you said
Yes.
6 weeks away.
I'm
So,
6 weeks away. Yeah.
so you're
So
gonna have another one in there. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to go easy on yourself, Amber.
yeah,
You've got a lot on your
yeah.
plate. You gotta
Well,
remember that it's okay to to take some time for yourself, and
you know
it's one.
what? It's funny you say that because I have, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No,
Let's
it's
just
okay. Go ahead.
so like people think I'm crazy, but I don't answer the phones anymore. Like for me,
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not answering the phones, like no more. And at one point we outsourced it, and what we realized ironically was that we got less results when we outsourced. We've tried different companies, and then I've tried hiring on my own VA, And I'm not saying that that doesn't work, but for me, I felt like something was missing, right? And so I said, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. And ironically, I closed all of our people. I don't get on the phones at all of our people I close via text message. Like I
Oh,
just
look at that.
I do not I do not I decided I'm not going to prioritize my kids are not going to think my phone is more important than them.
Hmm.
And so that was some of the things, like sometimes you have to make hard choices. And
Yeah,
then,
no, that's
you
smart.
know,
That's a really good strategy to overcome that, for sure.
yeah,
That's
but the
awesome.
thing is just like I said, acknowledging it and then saying, okay, what can I do to adapt? Like, this is my issue. This is what's building me guilt. Is there some way I can adapt around it and
Hmm.
still get a similar result? Are we missing some jobs? Yeah, I'm sure we're missing some opportunities, right? Because there are some people that still prefer a phone
Sure.
call. And, you know, I'll get on the phone if I have to, but I mean, it's literally once or twice a week, no lie. Like,
Yeah.
getting on the phone.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's that problem solver coming out in you, right? You
Yeah.
identify an issue and you adapt it. So that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
So when you're gonna have a baby soon, so are you gonna take
Mhm.
a maternity leave, or are you gonna still try to kind of help out as you can, obviously?
So yeah, we've got Kelvin off for 2 weeks, and then we're just, you know what, we're trying to plan as best as we can, but it's also one of those situations where I find like if you communicate, that's the key, right? So as customers are calling, so for example, a few weeks back, we were like, hey, springtime is here, but also something else is about to pop. So if you want to get your windows cleaned, right? Like, so like I think the biggest thing is that we as business owners don't understand is that communication is huge, right? And
Mhm.
as long as you communicate, they know we're small businesses, we have families,
Yeah.
we're business owners. And so we've communicated to where I'm like, hey, there's going to be this 3 week time span or whatever. So you can book before or you can book after, and
Right.
we'll still get you taken care of.
Yeah.
So, um, and
And,
then
and
after that, yeah.
no, I was gonna say, and honestly, a lot of people, that's why they hire you, right? Because they want a small business. They want that
Right,
feel. So if you're telling them, hey, look, I'm gonna be we're gonna be having a baby soon, they understand. They can
right,
their windows can wait a few weeks, to have it done.
right, right.
And I know when I was first starting out, well, like maybe 5 to 10 years into my business, and I had a decent customer base. And if something came up, I mean, they were always so understanding,
Hmm.
especially if it was a family emergency or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, well, one is the communication, but two is the already have laid the groundwork for having a good relationship with your clients, where they
Absolutely.
appreciate your work, they appreciate what you do, and then so when you need to favor them, like just be patient, you know,
Right,
then they're yeah, yeah, sweat, don't we'll do it. You take care of your family, and please send us pictures, when you're done. And
right.
then it's like a family thing, and it's that
Exactly.
relationship is stronger because of it. Because and I always tell people this too, because we're so independent, sometimes we feel like, oh well, I don't want no one to help me out for nothing. I did this on myself, I'm building my own
Hmm.
company. But when whether it's another business owner who's offering you advice, whether it's
Hmm.
a friend or family member who's just trying to help you get on your feet with your business, whoever it may be, if they give you something and they're offering their help,
Hmm.
when you accept it, you're strengthening that relationship. Now, obviously, there's people with ulterior motives. There are,
Right,
and you do have to be careful,
right,
because they're giving you with the expectation you're giving them something back. But a lot of people are just giving out of the kindness of their heart because they like what they see.
right.
So when you allow them to give to you, you're strengthening that relationship.
Yep.
And then you have an opportunity later to repay it by doing something for them that they appreciate. And man, it's like cement. And I've got customers like that,
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
it doesn't matter, how long. I mean, I some of them 20 years, but they're like, I'm not using anybody but Gabe. That's the company I'm using. That's who I
It's
I want.
funny you mentioned that because there were some people, we're booked out about 3 weeks, and there were some people that needed rush job. They needed rush jobs. And so we were trying to pass them on to like other companies, and they're like, no, I know your work, so I'll just wait. Right. Like
Yeah.
it's so true what you say.
Yep. Yep. And so we can do that. That's part of that building, that trust and like I said, you give to others, they're willing to give back to you.
Yep.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that you're doing, like I mentioned early on, you've got this Home Pro Portal software, which I think is pretty cool. I've taken a little bit of a look at it here, and
Mhm.
why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Because like you
Okay.
mentioned, you have a marketing background, right? You
Mhm.
used to have an agency. You are really good with computers and designing and stuff. So tell us a little bit about it, what it does, and how it can help small businesses.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of a backstory of it is, like I said, because of everything that has gone on in the past, I'm always looking for ways to be efficient. How can I get the same result in less time or less effort or less mental bandwidth, right?
Right.
So I would put a lot of focus on within our own company creating these templates and these, a lot, what's the word? I guess I need my one-time effort to work for me continually, right? And so I'm always on the lookout for like how can I automate? How can I make these things easier?
Mhm.
And so for the last 6 to 9 months, I can't remember how long I've been using it. This is something that we've used in our own business personally.
Mm.
So for instance, me not answering a call and still booking everyone, right? So like these are processes that we put in place. And so what I did is I found this framework and I says, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. Let me customize it just for home service providers. Um, it's actually my passion. Marketing is my passion, helping people and saying, okay, what are you doing every day that you hate that you do repeatedly, right? Because if you do something repeatedly, you can most likely automate it, right?
Mhm.
And so that's essentially what this does. I call it the Home Pro portal because for me, what's most important is so we all have our business and we all have to spend time or money to get people to see our business.
Right.
And so everyone's like, okay, let me do Google ads. I'm going to go do these postcards, blah, blah, blah. Right. But then when the phone rings, there's like these gaps of missed opportunity, right? Because you might be with a client, you might be like me, you might have kids, something might slip through the cracks. So the Home Pro portal essentially helps bridge that gap between the efforts that you're putting into your marketing. Um, and it solves a lot of those problems. And so, for example, um, let's talk about the time aspect, right? The time and your sanity.
Yeah.
So I found this one of the things that's built into it is an all-in-one inbox, right? So
Okay.
you can check your Facebook message, your text message, your phone calls, Google My Business now. People can message you through Google My Business, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
So
get
now
those
you
too. Mhm.
yeah, so now you can capture all these conversations in one place. And not only that, oh, chat widget, website chat widget too, right? So now
Mhm.
you can capture all of these things in one place. And now you're doing two things. Number one, you're making your business more available to capture the lead without paying any more money. And number two, you're saving your sanity because now all of your notifications come through one place. You don't have to like check a bunch of different things and miss out on those opportunities. Oh man, I don't have everything in front of me. It really,
No, no, it's good. So because I
that's
mean,
my favorite one.
yeah, that's that's totally what I need. I mean, because we'll see, we get it
Oh
from,
no,
so we get it from, phone calls, obviously.
right,
Then we've got Facebook. Then we've got
right.
Instagram. Then we've got what we call Grasshopper, which is we have a
Yep,
digital
yep.
line, right? And so
Uh-huh.
our main line, you can text it because it goes through.
Right.
Then we've got our email,
Yep.
and we've got two emails. We've got our new customer email, and then we've got my main email for the business.
Mm,
And then, like you said, now we've got Google My Business,
right.
Yelp. I mean,
Yeah.
you just go, I mean, I must have about 20 different ways in which customers reach out to us, and
Right.
so easy to miss. It's so easy to let one slip through the cracks.
Right. So for me, that's my favorite feature. I know everyone has different we've got different features in there. But that I feel like that correlates most with what we've been talking about here today, which is anxiety and just how can we simplify and automate, some of these things. But there's lots of different features on it. And so what I wanted to do was to create this place where, you've got like your CRM, and you've got awesome things like responsibility. So there's lots of
Mm-hmm.
tools. You've got like text magic that people use to bulk text. And so essentially with this framework, we've tried to put together a lot of these tools all in one solution. And so like, and I call it the portal, right? Because it's the doorway
Mm-hmm.
to everything else. So anything before scheduling that quote, right? Like once you get to the point that you're scheduling a quote, now you're looking at your house call pro, your customer factor, right?
Right.
But what about the in between? What about between that and your marketing, right? So that's
Yes.
kind of where this portal falls into place.
Yes. Nice.
And so we've got it to where it connects to like Zapier, so it can connect, just pass that information along to most CRMs. So yeah. Sorry, I
Do you
get so
have
excited about it. I start talking like nerdy talk, right? Like I'm
yeah, do
trying to
you
like bottom line, my goal is to help save you time and get
Mhm.
more ROI out of your marketing efforts.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah.
I guess that's the simplified version, right?
What you should do is at the when this podcast gets posted in ITF, you should post some screenshots so that people can understand what it looks like, of the different
Yeah,
messages
for
coming
sure.
in. And that way, because it
Yeah.
is hard. I mean, when you first told me about it, I mean, I was interested because those are my problems, but I couldn't really visualize how it
Yeah.
was going to happen. So to kind of get into the program itself was very interesting, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, it looks really really good.
Yeah, I'll
Now,
post the link because I've actually got like a demo walkthrough. And then
mhm,
if anyone has any questions,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
I want to be able to show like one of the things, the downfalls with a lot of the applications and softwares, you'll be like, oh, this is cool, right? But then there's that gap of how will it help me specifically, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so like if anyone needs to like hop on a call and say, hey, I use this CRM, this is my pain point, how can it help me specifically?
Right.
I'm totally open to help out with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with your marketing background,
Mhm.
you've obviously helped your husband, you guys work together to grow your own business.
Mhm.
What when you look at the different window cleaning companies around, like
Mhm.
what's the marketing thing or strategy that you see people not doing, that if they would just do this one thing, their
Mm.
business would do so much better?
I don't know if it's one thing. So there's the technical, but the simplest thing and advice that I can give people is just be personable.
Yeah, I agree.
If they go to your website, talk to them, put text on your website like they are a person.
Yeah.
Don't like, I know you want to look professional, but like in all of my communications, I wish I could show like when you Facebook message us, like there's an automatic pop-up and there's a goofy picture of me like this, right? Like, but they like people want to resonate with people. And
Yeah.
so I think just showing some personality
Yep.
and communications and expectations, those are the two biggest things like that will set you apart without any extra technical knowledge or anything like that.
Mhm.
Communication and expectations don't cost you anything,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And it's just the other thing is just making it simple. Make it simple for them to get a quote, right? Like I see we were perusing through some people's websites and there's a phone number, but you have to scroll all the way to the bottom to get a quote,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
No, put a button up top, get a quote, like put it in their face, right? Like
yeah.
make it one, two, three simple.
Yep.
So that would be the biggest thing that I would say without spending any extra money. Those would be the few things that I think could definitely help.
Yeah. Man, that's so true. I really feel like, if you sanitize your brand too much,
Hmm.
you risk kind of having that corporate feel to it,
Yes. Yes.
And again, nothing wrong with corporate. I mean, there's window cleaning company like Fish and
Hmm.
was it forget some of the Squeegee Pro, where they're
Hmm.
franchises and that's what they do. And again, there's definitely a market or at least a business plan for that type of thing.
Right.
But people are inviting you into their home, right?
Exactly.
that
That's
you're
exactly.
they don't want to invite a stranger, or at least not a
Mm-hmm.
total stranger. So if you can show your personality, if you can have that come out, and you can see, like you say, that you're not afraid to be a little goofy, or you're willing to have a little fun, and you're just a regular person and you're
Right.
friendly, that people they're going to look at you as opposed to this other robotic like website,
Right.
and they're going to say, no, no, I want this person here coming to my house. I don't want whoever it is, this nameless, tech, to
Right.
come and service, do our windows for us. But yeah, if you can have the personality of one you, especially if you're a single operator, but if
Mm-hmm.
you're a crew, you have crews, just have the personality for the business,
Right.
and show
Right.
that personality out. That way it can continue to
Yeah.
because people remember that. They remember the nice
Exactly.
guy who came over. They don't necessarily remember your business name all the time,
Yeah.
or
And
your
oh, I'm
website.
sorry.
No, good.
Yeah, because I was going to mention, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the reasons why that was so important to us in our business was back when we were renting, we had like a while back, we had like a slumlord. And whenever something went wrong, he
Hmm.
would hire people off of Craigslist, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I would talk about panic attack. Like, I'd be like, no, you can't have someone come here when my husband's not here because I don't know who you're sending, right?
Right.
And so I know I'm not the only one that, like, your house is your domain, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and so that was why it was so important for us. We use a ton of pictures of ourselves, like a ton of pictures. Um, and I'm really glad you brought that up because that I feel like also will, like, I remember when we first started and I was out in the field with Kelvin, the lady like opened the door and gave me a hug. She's like, I feel like I know you. I'm like,
Yeah.
it was awesome. But I'm glad you brought that up. So that's the easiest thing I think to do is just put yourself in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel when someone just comes to your home, like to
Right.
do something where your family lives, right? Like, and then reverse engineer it to make them feel
Right.
like I even say on my website, like I like to make our customers feel warm and fuzzy, right? Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good. Yeah. For me, like with the biggest way that we promote our brand is through social media. So with
Hmm.
Instagram, Facebook, we're definitely more focused on the ads than the regular.
Hmm.
Although anything on Instagram automatically gets sent to Facebook, but
Right.
Instagram is really where I have the most interaction with customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just booked a client with or a realtor who follows me on Instagram, and she must have followed
Nice.
me for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I would post on her account, she would post on mine, and again, nothing. I never asked for, never, tried to solicit anything from her other than just appreciated her following our account. And then just the other
Mm.
day, she messaged me asking questions about a window that she is, they're trying to get a house ready for sale. And she sent me a message. I mean, it was so funny because I've never met this woman in my life, but we were talking like we knew each other because we kind of
Exactly.
did, we
Yeah.
followed each other for so long. And then so she's like, okay, awesome. Now that I know that something can be done, I'll have you guys come out. What number should I
Yep.
call? And I gave her the number, and boom, we booked the account, just like that. But, it was like she was asking a friend for advice on how to do something as
Right.
opposed to, oh, I see you do windows, what was this, there's nothing robotic about it. It was very
Yeah.
natural, very
Yeah.
warm. And now she's excited because someone who she's comfortable with is going over to go do it. No second
Yeah.
bids involved, or
Exactly.
third bids.
Right.
It's just she
Let-
wants me, she wants our business to go and do that. And that's the sweet spot of in social media and marketing, when you can get
And
people
when
like
you really tie that in, you don't have to compete on price either. Like
that. Oh,
there were plenty of times where we've had customers say, like, yeah, our neighbors said that these other companies were cheaper, but your customer experience was worth paying more,
yep.
And so those are the little things that's gonna, help set that apart too.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Really, really good stuff there. Any other marketing tips? Like, is there something like as far as like logos or anything that we should kind of keep in mind? Because I know people that question pops up a lot in ITF
Mhm.
with people, asking to compare logos or just,
Yeah.
branding in general.
So I will admit I'm not a designer, but what I do know is people's attention span.
Hmm.
And so in everything marketing that you do, from your logo to lettering on a truck to putting a post on Facebook, you literally have about 3 seconds to grab
Right.
someone's attention.
Yep.
And so if you keep that in mind in everything that you do, including your logo,
Yeah.
is it easy to see? Can they tell
Right.
what you do from the name? Like, make your logo smaller than your service. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when people don't know you, they don't really care about your logo like, okay, so let me rephrase that. I'm not a branding specialist, y'all. Like, but if you're just starting out, right? Like, let them know what you do. Like, you've got 3 seconds. Oh, this company,
Right.
they do that. I need to call them.
Yep.
Right? Like,
Yep.
I think if you keep that fundamental thing in mind, and just like, people don't care about you, they care about themselves.
Yep.
So utilize that mindset as well in your marketing. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
And I
you know,
I've learned that lesson on 3 areas: website, business
hmm,
cards, and lettering on your truck. Because I remember
yeah.
my very first, now I designed my first website. It was one of the free ones, and I
Uh-huh.
went through, and of course it took like 2 days for me to get it just the way I liked it. I got it right. I mean, it
Mhm.
was like I had like encyclopedias of information on there, for
Right.
my clients. And of course, it was back in the early days of the internet, and that's
Right.
that's how websites were, right? I
You
mean,
could get away with it,
you
right?
could get away with it. I mean, you have this ugly, bright coloring and just letter words that you can't even hardly read because the contrast is off.
Right.
And I did. I mean, I just had volumes of information in there about my business. I
Mhm.
had like 10 pages all tabbed at the top,
Oh,
and
goodness.
I mean, that's what everybody did. So that's what we did. But then now that we've got our redesigned website with Nice Job, it's
Mm-hmm.
sleek. It's just sleek. We
Yeah.
have 3 tabs, and they just kind of go down. I mean, it's just so much nicer. And like you said, because when we write our own, whatever it is, whether it's a business card, or website, or a truck, we're thinking for us. We're like, oh, what do we want
Right.
people to know about? But we forget people aren't looking for every little thing about what we do. They want to know, do we
Right.
do what they need?
Right.
And just like what you said with the lettering, 3 seconds they take a turn, they see the truck, the first thing they're going to see is hopefully what you do, and then they're going to
Right.
think, oh, I need that done, then look at the logo and say, okay, I got to remember to call them when I go. So
And
it's kind
make
of a
the phone
combination.
number and website visible, like, very
Yes.
easily clear. Like, I
Yeah.
see that a lot too. Yeah.
And take advantage of your tailgate. Have your
Oh,
information there where
yeah.
they can just take a picture when you're at the stoplight, and you're
Yeah.
waiting, and they, oh yeah, yeah, and then they can just take a picture. I seen one truck that had a QR
Mm.
code. Now, people don't use QR codes that much, as much as I think they thought it was going to be. So
Right.
it may not be as efficient, but whatever it is, give, like you said, give them that opportunity to be able to find out what you do and then how to contact you. And that's
Right.
that's all
Yeah.
the time you got on that lettering.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other biggest thing that I just want to recommend too is, a lot of times I see on a website, don't speak, I don't know the proper way, but don't speak from the I form. Try not to use I or we,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like,
that's a good point.
so you can try to, if you write it out that way, try to reverse it. So, like, for example, I think on ours it says, after dealing with hundreds of customers in this blah 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 area, right? So, like, I didn't say we, right? So, I can't think of it, but just
No.
try not to keep an account of how many times you say the word I or we,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because that was my problem as well. And my
mm-hmm.
problem also was I was alternating between I, we, and like, and then as if I was speaking from the third person. And,
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
yeah, and so I, again, with those volumes of of text in my website, after looking back at it, I was like, oh man, here I'm I, here I'm we, and here I'm like the announcer talking about the business, and there was no
Yeah,
fluidity, you know. And that's the stuff that annoys people enough that they don't call you, you know.
yeah. The last biggest tip I would say is stay in your lane, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
it's hard to let go of certain, as we were talking about certain things. I know from a designer aspect, I stink, right? Like, I can't,
Mm-hmm.
but I know marketing. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stay in my lane with that. But as a business owner, I don't see how solo owner operators do it, in all honesty, where they're doing their own website, they're doing their own this, doing their own on that. I would suggest learn enough so that if you outsource it, you won't get messed over, right? But
Right.
past, the 80/20 rule, man, stick to your 20%.
I
And
love that. Yeah.
don't be scared to do it. It's kind of scary at first because it is an investment, right? And you're like, man, I can just do it. I still tell my man, I can do this myself. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I learned that the hard way too. And now my attitude is, if I know someone can do something better than me, then I'm going to pay them to do it.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
why waste my time if I'm at the end of it, I'm not going to be happy with the result. And
yeah.
and and I just spent all that time and I can't get that time back. It's
Think
gone.
about it.
So
I mean, like everyone's shooting for like what, averaging $100 an hour, right? Cleaning windows. Why would you spend, if you value your time at $100 an hour, why would you spend 2 to 3 weeks to make something that's subpar, right? Like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
so,
A ten
but
ten
yeah.
thousand dollar website that looks like a kindergartner made it, right?
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Very good. Awesome. Well, Amber, thank you so much for the time. Anything else you want to share
Yeah.
before we close up shop here with marketing or anything else?
No, not really. Just, I just encourage, like, if you guys, I'm trying to put together like a group. I also have a Facebook
Oh
group
yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
working
yeah.
on.
Please share a little bit about that because I joined it.
Yeah,
I didn't get to get in the first meeting that we're going to do, but hopefully as the word gets out, more people will join.
yeah.
I think, why don't you tell a little
So
bit
I
about
know,
it?
so there's a ton of groups that focus on the technical side of things, the technician side of things. But when you're overwhelmed with tasks, there's other groups that also say, hey, here's how to build your business, right? But sometimes you just need tactics. Sometimes you just need to know, I'm so overwhelmed, what do I need to do? Like, you're telling me flyers work, but what's working for you with flyers? How many are you putting out to get X result, right?
Right.
And so that's what I wanted this group to be, because sometimes you need tangible, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's what's working for us. We did this, we sent out this many text messages and we got this many bookings from it, right? Or we did this, like, what's working now is kind of what the group is called, right? And so
Mhm.
this is kind of a group where it's I would like it to be more tangible than any other group that is in there. So if you're overwhelmed and you're like, oh crap, I need to book something, right? Or I'm having this struggle on the back end, here's a tangible
Yes.
template that I can go put in place.
Yeah.
Here's something I can sit down, because there's a lot of great trainings out there, and you're all excited, like, yeah, I'm pumped up, and then you sit down at the table to do it, and then you just get overwhelmed. You're like,
Yeah.
where do I start,
Well,
right? Like,
yeah, yeah. When you told me about it, I thought it was awesome because I think about a lot of times where like friends will get together and they'll like, hey, they'll like for instance, I know some of my wife's friends will get together and swap clothes. Clothes are done
right,
with, and they're like, hey, this might fit you, take it. And then I forget there's a name for it, but I can't remember the name of
yeah,
that
yeah,
type of thing. But that's what it kind of reminded me of, where we all sit together and we say, okay, here's the things that have worked really well for me. But
right,
A, B, and C, these are awesome. A,
yeah,
C, D, E, and F, these I am struggling with. Do any of you guys know what I can do to kind of deal with these problems? And then listen to the
exactly,
feedback, and you may learn something specifically for your situation, or find out how someone else is handling that problem or that circumstance. And now you may get some enough information that you can make adjustments for your business to handle those problems a little bit
right,
better or more efficiently.
yeah, exactly. So I want it to be like the vibe of Into the Flow, right? Where everyone's just contributing, right? But on the back end of it, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of the goal, where everyone is a contributor. There is no one single guru, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And like, as a matter of fact, I'm like trying to align interviews with people that have these certain strengths, and say, hey, what are some simple things that we can do to get XYZ results? So that's
Yeah.
kind of the goal of it. So I don't mind definitely including that link as well. The more the
Yeah. Please
merrier on it.
Please
We're a
drop the
young
link in there.
group.
Yeah.
We're a young group, but it's small. But I think small, but we can build it to be something really powerful to help a lot of people.
Like with anything, it's just consistency, and if you got a few
Yeah,
people that back it up, I mean, that's how ITF started. It started with
yeah,
an idea. It took probably about 6 months before it really got a firm hold on it, but
Yeah.
the foundation of it was people who really believed in it, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's got a lot of value for people who are looking for solutions. And like you said, it's something that they're not just there to take, but they're there to offer what they know as well, and that's how
Yeah,
you build
absolutely.
each other up. So awesome.
Cool.
All right, Amber. Well, thanks so much. So we're going to put that link to that group in the comments. We're also going to put the link to your Home Pro portal, and that way you can show them, people can take a look at a sample video and see how that works. We really appreciate all your hard work. And once again, congrats on your new arrival coming in 6 weeks. We're very happy for you
Thank you.
guys. Wish you well. And please say hi to Jim and Dwight right in front of you. So those
Oh
those
yeah, yeah.
those who are not watching on YouTube, she's got a office background here. She's sitting in the seat where Pam sat when she was the salesman there. So just
Yeah.
a little office trivia in there for you. So,
Yep, yep.
all right, and give our best to
Awesome.
Calvin too. All right, buddy.
Will do. Will do. You too. And your
Thanks
family
so
as well.
much. Thanks so much,
All
Amber.
right,
Nice
take
talking
care.
with you. Catch you later.
All right.
Thank you, Flowmies. You guys have a great week. We'll catch you later. Flow on.